And amidst the course of this, only one person really agreed with me. Only one person really helped me build the story. Others were basically shouting their own individual stories. I narrated the common story. I got 2 questions which I answered, and we all waited outside. And then the psychologist came out and announced the result. And only I and the other individual who sort of helped me build the story got selected in some entrance exams from the past. So 12 standard ranks, and some of the ranks I didn't remember. I remember JE mains or something. I didn't remember the rank, but I told him that my rank looked like a pin code, and I don't remember it. And why Navy? He chose he asked me why Navy, not Air Force or Army. And the reason was, I said, I think I am not really happy with that answer. I said it has a 3-level supremacy, right? Over the air, on the over the water, on the water, and under the water supremacy. So I actually gave that answer, and then I told there was an opening, there was a vacancy, which is why I applied to Navy.
जय हिंद दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका एक नए वीडियो में। और इस वीडियो में हमारे साथ है जयकृष्णन। ही रिसेंटली गॉट रिकमेंडेड फॉर इंडियन नेवी and he also got medically fit and merit in, and he is ready to join Indian Naval Academy. So I welcome Jayakrishnan on this platform.
Thank you very much, Ankur. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Jayakrishnan, like we are going to discuss about your journey in this video. Just share about your journey and how you prepared for the SSB, specifically for various techniques like PPDT, Psych, GTO, and interview. And we are going to understand how you prepared for these techniques and how you performed according to your preparation and all. We are going to discuss examples, numerous examples, like on what all themes you made stories during your PPDT and TAT during your SSBs, how you gave the lecturette, how you prepared for the lecturette, how you prepared for the interview questions and all. Okay, so first of all, congratulations, Jayakrishnan.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is going on in your mind? You are just 20 days away from joining the academy.
It's a mixed feeling situation, actually. I'm a little anxious while I'm excited. I'm hoping for the best.
Mixed feelings. Okay, okay.
Yes.
You will get to know once you will get into the academy.
Yes.
Okay, so Jayakrishnan, he also attended my workshop as well, SSB Workshop 7. He was part of that workshop, and just tell me how you come to know about my SSB workshop and how this workshop helped you in preparation for the SSBs.
Yes, so I actually, when I started my SSB preparation, it was actually because of a PSB call letter which I got after CG camp, and as a part of that, I started looking up on YouTube what are the materials available now, and I came across your blogs. I was entirely foreign to the process of SSBs. So I actually had to watch a blog also to really know how it actually transpires. Do people actually show up the way I imagined? So as a part of that, I came across your videos, and then I got to know about your credibility and then about the possibility of learning or consulting. So that's how I got to know you. And I'm actually someone who's not really familiar with this whole process. I don't really have a lot of people who have taken this path also. So consulting you was a big thing because you were at Access most of the times, and I could actually ask you any doubt that I had. It could be even silly doubt. I remember I asked you if the shoe was white enough to take to the SSB.
yeah, I remember you sent me that photo of that shoes.
Shoe, yes.
This is acceptable or not?
Yeah. So I had such doubts also. So I needed somebody whom I could ask, and your expertise really came to use that way. And I was actually not very in a position to attend all the workshops, but the pre-recorded videos and the material which you had, it really simplified my process. I could actually save a lot of time. Scouting for materials is not easy. And there's a lot of materials out there nowadays. So it's actually, everything was in one place. And I didn't really consult anyone else or any other source after I started consulting you.
Okay, so, I hope my workshop helped you a lot. So let's first of all, just tell us about your journey, about SSB, and how you inclined towards the forces, what made you start preparing for the defense exams. But because you are not from defense background, isn't it?
Right, yes. So I actually did my schooling, everything with no particular plan to actually go down this path. And I did engineering like most of the candidates. Usually I did my engineering also. And after my engineering, I was also placed. And I was planning to go down that path. And even then, going through SSB or anything was not really something which I planned. And an unexpected career break during the second year of my job actually led me to start from scratch. I actually started analyzing all my options. And all the exams, basically. It could be government, even entrance exams like CAT, everything. I considered everything. And as a part of that, I'd actually applied for CG CAT and some SSBs. So I happened to clear the first level of CG CAT. And then PSB came on the way, and I started preparing for PSB. So once I cleared PSB, in my first attempt, I was quite confident. So I thought, okay, SSB might be my thing, and I need to give my best for SSB. And in between that, I got my Navy call letter. And I thought, okay, Navy might be a good practice session for FSB. That's how I really saw that. And but I never, I gave my 100% to both the exams. And when I went to Navy, when I showed up to Navy, also my attitude was that I just give my 100%, and I didn't really care about the result. I just had to give my 100% so that I knew if my approach was something that will have a result, so that I can do well in FSB for Coast Guard. And that's how I actually ended up there. It was not really pre-planned. But when the time came, I took about 2 months and started from scratch. There's ample amount of material, thanks to you. And I had a lot of free time also because I was at home. So I actually could start from scratch, prepare accordingly. That's how I came into this.
Okay. So like before this, like just before your Navy SSB, ठीक है हम लोग मिले भी थे. You
Right.
called me by because you
Yeah.
also live in Mysore, and you got to know that
Yeah.
I am also working in Mysore only. So you
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
me regarding like we
Yes.
can have a meeting or not. So like we met and we had a chat around for like 2 hours, I think. Like
Yeah.
we were
Yeah. We
having a
walked down the
walk
lake.
around
Yeah.
the Kukrali Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were discussing about a lot of things, like mainly about SSB and your life,
Right.
like what you were doing before this, before starting preparation for the SSB and all. So that's
Yes.
it. Okay. So like let's start. Let's discuss about your SSB. है ना? So like you cleared your PSB in your first attempt. है ना? Just and like you also got screened in. So you gave 2 screenings and you got screened in both the times. So like
Yeah.
how you prepared for the screening, and just give examples like what kind of picture you got in a PSB and what kind of picture you got for the Navy SSB, and like what
Right.
story you made upon those pictures.
Right. So first ever screening experience was for Coast Guard PSB in Goa, and for PSB in Goa, I had actually done very serious preparation. So PSB has CCBT, not OIR,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
CCBT there are some mocks on YouTube. So timed mocks. Each question disappears after a certain few seconds. So I actually took CCBT mocks. I took several mocks. I practiced. I even made up my own questions in similar format and took it very seriously. So after CCBT for PPDT of PSB, I had not done any serious preparation actually. I just thought, okay, there's a story, and I just saw some stories. Okay, there is a 100-word story. This is the usual nature of the story, and I'll just write a story when I go there. So when I went there, I actually realized that I'm not really prepared to write a story. I spoke to some fellow candidates, and they were quite confident, and I found myself to be in a very bad position. But then I didn't really want to give up also. So that's when I saw this. I spoke to this individual before in my previous batch, and he told me, to relate it to certain themes, it should be positive. So I just had that at the back of my head. And this picture we got was of a man, no, middle-aged, mid-20s or early 20s. He was walking in between a forest of sorts, wearing a hiking gear, and it was a little blurry. So the story I went for was, he's going to meet, no, he's going to hike in the Western Ghats, and during his hike, as he reached the summit, he saw there was a lot of plastic that was littered, and he was very disappointed by that. Then he collaborated with the local village authorities and everyone, and got it clean. Very simple, straightforward story. And everybody had something of this kind, waste management or something else. Someone else was going to visit their grandmother in the village or something of that sort. So in my PPDT, my strategy was mostly to listen to. My plan was actually to do well in the narration, because I was not confident about discussing also. This was my first PPDT, and I didn't really have a lot of confidence. So I actually planned to make an impression while narrating. And for some reason, that narration actually was cut short. It was very short time given to every candidate for narrating. So I got only around 10-15 seconds, as far as I remember.
10
Everybody
15
got only
seconds
that
of
much.
narration only.
Narration. They were like, okay, next, okay, next.
How they
And
are judging based on 15 seconds
yeah,
of narration.
exactly. So everybody got that much. It was a
This
fair
is PSB Goa.
method. Yeah, PSB Goa. For that particular batch, others might have gotten a different experience also. So after 15 seconds, it was a turn of the next candidate. And when those 15 seconds were over, I realized that I need to discuss no matter what. My narration was not good enough, right? So I was seated in the middle of the semicircle, and I actually had view to both sides. So when the narration started, it was actually PSB does not separate based on number of
Freshers,
attempts for some
repeaters, or
reason.
something like that.
Yeah, so mine was a very good mix. The person sitting next to me had around 10-12 attempts. So it was a good mix, actually. I'm a fresher. The person next to me had a couple of attempts. It was like that. So when the discussion started, it was quite chaotic, and I was not used to that. But then deep down, I really wanted to go further, right? It is not that I had a lot of opportunities in hand. I had to make the most out of every opportunity I had. I was not, it was a risky situation for me, basically. So I decided to go all in, basically, and try to give my best. So in that process, I got involved, and basically I listened to everybody's story. So in that time, I actually felt that, okay, many people's story is similar. So there's no need to discuss that again and again, because we already agree on a certain part of the story. Only the part that we have not agreed on, we must discuss. So I pushed that point. Then we started. There's some disagreement on the central character's age and his appearance and intention, background. We tried to fix those things, and eventually in order to sort of get to an agreement, I mixed my story with somebody else's story. So, for example, this person was hiking according to in my story, but the person next to me told he's hiking to visit his grandmother. I felt that was a better mix. So, going to meet your grandmother adds more depth to the story. So I added that. So when he's hiking to go to meet his grandmother, he sees a lot of garbage and he does something about it. That is the direction I was taking the story. And the group was so chaotic that it was split in half in middle. And in that also it was quite chaotic, but it came into more control during that time. And that time we tried to sort of take more control, and the story was getting built. And because I was seated in the middle, I was quite present. My presence was there, and the others would also sort of see that. And maybe because of that, they were all kind enough to nominate me for the last narration also, comment narration also. And amidst the course of this, only one person really agreed with me. Only one person really helped me build the story. Others were basically shouting their own individual stories. So I narrated the common story. I got 2 questions which I answered, and we all waited outside. And then the psychologist came out and announced the result. And only I and the other individual who sort of helped me build the story got selected. So I don't really know. Others were quite solid. But the takeaway from that was, in PPDT, if you cannot lead, if you are a good follower, if there is someone who's trying to lead the story in the right direction, if you follow him, even that might be a good strategy. So that was the only takeaway I had from PPDT. And so that's how I took care of my first PPDT. And for Navy, the PPDT experience was a little different because it was not as chaotic. They split based on attempts. And until then, I was zero confidence. So I was in the first earlier numbers itself. So the group was very respectful. Everybody took their, and Navy gave good time to narrate individual story too. We got about a minute, 30 seconds plus. And then everybody were respectful. We started, everybody were given a chance to tell. And that was a better, can I continue with my Navy PPDT experience?
Yeah, sure. Continue.
Yeah. So Navy, the picture was actually very blurry, but it was that of 2 elderly men in uniform. That's what I perceived. 2 elderly men in uniform. One of them looked little older than the other. So there was a lot of variation in Navy. The stories there was a lot of variation actually. Many people saw something entirely different, but this is what I saw. A lot of people saw ice, mountains, and things like that. I just saw 2 individuals sitting. That's all I saw. So my story was in the line of, there is a younger officer, there's an elder officer. When the younger officer joined the forces, he was having an engineering background, and he was quite new to this whole line of work. So he was anxious and is not able to give his best. So that's when there was a mentor figure in his life, this elderly officer. He mentored him and helped him give his best because he too had taken a similar path in the past. So that sort of approach. So it was a mentorship theme, you can say. And those two people are sitting during the elderly man's retirement function, and he's the younger officer is thanking him and reminiscing the older days. That he's appreciating this mentor or leader that he had in his life. That was the track that I took. It's a mentorship theme, you can say. And others had something similar. There was one where a younger man is coming and asking about SSB interview to an elderly officer. So that I felt was a decent theme. So we sort of tried to merge that. And some were really vague. Some went to trekking. Those cannot be integrated into the story. So I believe sometimes you might also write a story which is very different from where the group is taking direction. But it's all right. It's completely fine, provided you help them build the story. If you still try to pull in the opposite direction to what the team is pulling, it might not work in your favor. But if you try to build the story, even though you have returned something entirely different, I think it's fine. So that was the Navy's PPDT experience.
Okay. And you got more than 30 plus seconds for your individual narration, and GD also
Yes.
went well because you were all
Yeah.
freshers. No?
Yes.
Okay. So PSB was more chaotic compared to this Navy PPDT.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So this is all about your PPDT experience, and thank you for sharing your themes on which you made stories upon. In this particular Navy SSB, you just made a story between relationship between senior and junior officer, and how senior
Yes.
officer helped the junior officer. Okay, wonderful. So now let's move ahead with the stage 2. है ना people have a lot of myths, है ना they text me regarding the themes, on which themes recommended candidates make stories upon, and also we are going to discuss all these things in detail. So let's move ahead with the stage 2. First of all, let's discuss about psychology. And psychology, major role, or if we talk about major weightage, okay, so it is carried by thematic perception test. Okay, so let's talk about thematic perception test, how you prepared for the thematic perception test, and can you just give examples from your SSB, Navy SSB, in which you got recommended, and on what all themes you made stories upon and all?
Sure, sure. So I'll take 4 stories example, which I distinctly remember during my naval SSB. I'll take those as an example. So one of the stories we came across was a planning theme. So there was an engineer sitting, and there was a paper, what looked like a map or something, or a blueprint in front of him, and there were four people surrounding him, and he was sitting. So I actually have some experience with mechanical engineering. I was an industrial and production engineering graduate, but it's an offshoot of mechanical engineering. So we had that sort of experience, and I was into formula racing and things like that a little bit
Baha,
in college.
Baha type, like
Yeah,
making racing
exactly.
cars and all.
Yeah. So a little bit. So I try to take it in that direction because my general understanding of PPDT was that the story has to be positive, it has to be realistic, and it also has to be something, ideally something which is related to you also. I don't know if it's true, but I try to make it that way. So for me, I took it in that direction. I took there's a automotive company. They have a certain product. They wish to improve that product. So the senior is consulting his juniors for ideas, and he collaborates, and they build a great product. This was all summarized in 100 words. So the idea was a collaboration between seniors and juniors to build a great product. That was the sort of theme for that particular topic. And then the other one was a very standard one, graduation. So it looked like it's a graduation ceremony, but the thing is, it is a very simple black and white image and no blurring or anything like that. So I actually could not perceive it correctly. For me, it took a few seconds to actually realize that it was graduation. So sometimes you might actually not see the image clearly. Take a few seconds and see the image. To me, it actually appeared like something from the past, something totally absurd. So luckily, when I finally realized that it was a graduation, I wrote a very simple story. Somebody overcame his poverty and everything, and he graduated, making his parents proud. That is the sort of line I went to. It seems reasonable for my background as well. Then the other one of the first stories was a man boating through what seemed like a forest, like a mangrove forest. So boating. So there's a stream of sorts, and he's boating, and there's trees around. And this Kolkata SSB, where my SSB was actually in the near the Bay of Bengal. So I related it to Sundarbans and mangroves and things like that. So we actually wrote this. I actually wrote, there's this individual. He's interested in traveling and things like that. And from hearing his friend, he lives in somewhere in the south. And hearing his friend who went to give an SSB recently, he was fascinated about Sundarbans and mangroves. And because of that, he decided to take a solo trip, went there, hired a boat, collaborating with the locals. Then he explored the Sundarbans, took picture of the Royal Bengal tiger, learned a lot about the place, and came back. That was a very simple, straightforward story, but that's what I went for. The only reason I sort of linked that instant I linked with this was I was located in such a place where I could not really think of anything else. But I think some of my fellow cadets who with me, who were recommended, wrote something practicing for boating race. In that line, they were also quite confident with those stories. There was one more. This was a very tricky one. So it was an indoor picture. At the back, there is a man wearing a shawl over his head, and there is this man facing us and facing a woman, but the man's face is also visible to us. He's pointing at a particular direction, and his face looks very aggressive, right? Very aggressive. So instantly you get a very you might get a negative emotion in that story. But I was trying to take it in a positive direction. So I decided to sort of take it in a direction such that this man's face actually does not indicate aggression, but it's fear. So the story that I brought up was this individual in the shawl at the back was a worker. He was working in Bangalore or something. He went to his hometown to meet his mother. And when he was there, it's a village. So a man just ran into the house and aggressively pointed towards the highway, reporting an accident that happened there. So the emotion in his fear can be justified as anger, anxiety, and fear or something. And in that process, this man also sprung into action, went and saved the people who were in trouble, and successfully saved them. So gave it a positive twist in the end. These were some of the stories. There's one more I remember, quite tricky one. There is just a table, indoor picture, and there are only newspapers and a cup of tea inside. So I believe I wrote it as a reunion. So he, after many years, he wanted to catch up with his college friends. So he booked a place in Ooty or something, and then he prepared tea, and he was waiting for them. And the moment he heard the sound outside, he ran to greet them. So this is the picture inside, but the man is actually waiting for his friends outside. So that is the sort of direction I took it. So the idea was, whenever I took up a story, I tried to make it, but I was never forcing it to become positive. A picture might clearly be a negative picture. I never forced it, but if possible, I try to give it a positive twist. Then I try to keep it realistic. Then whenever possible, I try to keep it, relate with the protagonist. So something I would probably do. I took it in that direction. So that's something, I don't know if it worked out. Honestly, psychology is such an enigma to most of us.
Yeah.
This is what
You
I
never
did.
know. You never know what is going to
Yeah,
work or what is going to not.
exactly.
Yeah. So like you told me that like that story in which you only saw that cup and like pot and table and chairs and all.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
discussed similar picture in our workshop as well. And we
right,
discussed two stories. One story was related to like making arrangements and helping family members for like
right,
home visit. Regarding the
right,
marriage,
right,
sister's
right,
marriage, and one
right.
was like school like being a day scholar, you are inviting your friends at home
Mm-hmm.
for like having
Mm-hmm.
like home cooked food for these
Right,
hostelers and all.
right.
Okay. So like after this,
So,
like yeah, tell me.
yeah, no, those very reasonable themes. But my approach to studying for PPDT was actually a little different from what most people did, because I never remembered any themes or anything like that. So most of the pictures I went through was I just used to flip through pages or look at pictures, and I used to think of a theme in my head. I never took pen and prepared, which is not really advised strategy. But that is what I did because of shortage of time and things like that. So I actually used to look at many pictures. Okay, this picture, this is probably the theme. This is the person I would take as a protagonist, and very quickly run a story through my head and move to the next picture. I never really sat and wrote down, which really worked against me in the initial in CG's case. But in Navy, by then I was a little more confident. But yes, so most of my preparations, I wanted to see as many pictures as possible. Instead of writing story for 10 pictures, if I saw 50 pictures and actually thought of a theme in my head, I felt I would be more confident. So that's the reason I took that path. But whichever works for a candidate, he can choose that.
या है ना सो लाइक वो होता है ना कि लाइक हर एक इंसान के लिए अलग अलग चीजें काम करती हैं ठीक
Exactly.
है
Yeah.
फॉर
Yeah.
दिस लाइक फॉर यू दिस थिंग वर्क लाइक यू नेवर
Right.
टच द पेन ड्यूरिंग योर साइट प्रैक्टिस एंड ऑल यू जस्ट यूज टू थिंक एंड
Yeah.
ब्रेनस्टॉर्म इन योर माइंड ओनली ओके
Exactly.
सो लाइक टेल मी व्हाट वाज योर ब्लैंक स्टोरी फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर एसएसबी
Blank story was something which I related to my own engineering career. So we actually, like I mentioned earlier, something related to Formula racing and all. We just I was not a very active member of the Formula racing team, so mine it was a little bit of fantasy in that sense. So it was more like, oh, he's an engineering graduate. He's passionate about automotive technology. He realizes that there is a very active automotive club in his college. So he talks to them, collaborates with them, gets selected. Over time, learns from his seniors, then helps them develop a winning product, then represents the college at national level and basically succeeds. So that is the sort of story I went with.
so this is the
Something which
similar
is,
story na you made in your first 11 pictures like there was one picture like there was one guy having
yeah,
like a document on his table and all
yes, that was more. This is college level. That was at a corporate level. That is the only
Okay,
difference.
okay.
But you, yeah,
As a professional, you worked in that as a project,
yeah,
है ना? Okay,
yeah.
okay, fine, fine. Okay, so this is all about thematic perception test. So you used to relate like majority of the stories with your own life and keep it simple. Okay, so like how you used to research about the actions part, like you ever search about the actions or you used to like write whatever comes to your mind.
Actions in that.
Yeah.
Mostly whatever used to come to my mind. I used to have a very custom approach actually. I remember I've seen most of the stories during my TAT. I'd seen before, but I didn't remember anything. So I
Okay,
didn't really
okay.
remember what I had written in the previous, but I had a fair idea, spinning something up quickly. But yeah, speed is of the essence. One thing that was really concerning me was sometimes you're not able to finish the story. So I tried to, whatever came to my mind instantly, I just try to write it as fast as possible. The last thing you want is a blank story or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I try to complete every psychological test I had. That actually, I firmly believe, even if you don't write, you need to see as many words as possible because VAT is not easy to hack, I feel, because I think words are also changing. And from your workshop, there was a very elaborate material with a lot of words in it. I couldn't cover it. Even I remember on my way to the SSB also, I was checking VAT more than anything else.
Yeah.
This word, I was not really concerned about writing good sentences, but sentences with depth. Say a sentence which would mean more. Say, for example, there's a word, forgive. And only thing that came to my mind was forgive but not forget, which is a very one-dimensional sentence. I was not very proud of it, but I wrote that. I feel if I was more prepared, I would write something with more depth. But I was only good side to it was I could complete all the words. But I firmly believe if you get right sentences with more depth, it will be a good thing.
Okay, so for VAT, you completed all the 60 VATs in this SSB.
Yes, that I completed all 60 words.
And the like PDF I provided you, na 400 words PDF. So
Yes,
you went through whole PDF or like you went through solutions as well?
I just needed the word, and I
Yeah.
was more like training my own brain to be prepared
Yeah.
for random words. So
Okay, so you
the
used to brainstorm like by looking at the word, like what comes to your
yeah
mind, like you
comes to
were
my mind.
like
Yeah,
making
and
sentences.
sometimes the sentence I'm getting is not really good. So in that case, I would actually look at the answer and be okay, this is good. I can write this also.
It happens.
So
It happens when
I
you start
yeah,
preparation, na? Like
yeah,
in starting, you will get a lot of sentences which are not up to the mark. So this is how you
exactly.
learn, है ना?
Yeah,
Okay, okay. So like you were going through all that PDF like during your journey and all, like
yeah,
looking into VATs and all. Okay.
Yes.
So, like, you also not touched pen for the VAT as well for the preparation.
That also I will not touch pen as such.
Very good, very good. Okay. And VAT is there. Okay. And like anything you want to tell about VAT, like anything special or tips and tricks you used like while approaching
Yeah.
VAT.
Yes. One thing I have particularly noted was if you write a very ambiguous sentence, a sentence which can be interpreted as good and bad, it might get cross questioned later during the conference, basically. So I remember one word was quiet. The word was quiet. And I quickly wrote, quiet people are often interesting, is what I wrote. And I don't know why I wrote that. That's what the psychological test also wants me to write what came to my mind spontaneously. That's what came to my mind spontaneously, and I wrote that. And I remember in conference, I don't know if this was the reason. One of the officers asked me, and not one of the officers, the person who talks to you during conference.
President or deputy president. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. He asked me, who's that one candidate you find interesting. So I actually took the name of a candidate and told him that he was a very interesting person because despite his humble background, he actually kept us all very entertained while we were at the stay, and that helped us keep a very fresh mind for everyday tests. So that's the answer I gave. But I feel that question itself came because of my controversial VAT answer. So I think sometimes if you write anything little on the edge or on the fence, you might get cross-questioned in VAT. So if you can be prepared for it, it will be a good strategy.
If they have some doubts regarding that, like they will clarify in the conference by cross-questioning that particular thing.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So this is all about word association test. Then let's move towards the SRT, situation reaction test. So how many SRTs you attempted?
I actually don't remember this. I think 48-ish.
48 SRTs.
48 or early 50s. I don't know. I mixed the Coast Guard and Navy's this.
Okay.
So I don't remember this, but 50s I didn't complete for sure. Maybe towards the late 40s range only.
Okay. So how you prepared for the SRTs and what was your approach like while tackling the SRTs in SSB?
Yes. SRTs actually, I think it really works to prepare. So because most of them are, the booklets
Similar
around you, similar type questions keep coming. So I actually try to, that also I didn't take pen, but I just try to build the sentence in my head as much as I can, very quickly, very fast. So some questions are a little controversial. Say, for example, Coast Guard, I remember some of the questions were very tricky. The situation itself was very difficult to understand. I think the first situation in Coast Guard's SRT, I couldn't understand the question. There's something about a trap door, something of that sort, very technical. I didn't really understand the problem. I didn't have enough time to get stuck to one question. So I just moved to the next one. So I left one in between. I usually don't try not to leave anything in between. So that was my approach with SRT, and try to make complete sentences. That okay, if there's an accident, you attend them, give first aid, and then take them to hospital. So try to sort of complete whatever you basically advised. I followed it just like that in SRT.
Okay, what we discussed in the workshop, like do's and don'ts.
Yes,
okay, yes. Okay, so this was all about SRTs. And like then let's discuss about the STT, self description test. So like you prepared your SDT beforehand, or like you just express yourself there?
No, that I don't advise that actually. You have to prepare because there's so little time. If you start writing there, you will only forget what you wrote, and then you're likely to mess it up during the interview. Actually, that is the only type I took pen for in the psychological while preparation also. I actually went, I rewrote again and again, talked to the people if they agree with me remotely. So I actually did a lot of work for SD because I thought it had to be true. It had to be true. It had to have some depth, and I had to be able to remember it also. Right, the words, it has to be distinct. Say if my parents think the same thing about me as my manager, then it's very difficult to sort of, you're writing the same thing basically. So I needed that distinction between every answer, and I worked on it. I worked on it quite well actually. I wrote a word that described me and gave a sentence that explained.
Example, as in like if you are talking about some quality, then you are going to give one example which will justify that how you are disciplined, how you are punctual, how you are like responsible. You used to give examples. Okay.
Right. So, for example, my manager, if he found me someone who, he's an example I'm giving. He found me to be someone who's adaptable. So the example I gave was whenever there's a new member in the team, I try to make them feel at home and introduce them to the manner in which work is conducted there. That sort of thing. My parents, it would be if they find me obedient, and a situation where I am obedient. So I think that is a very tested way. And that's the best way to write essay. And it is easier to remember also because even towards the end of the SSB, I only had a book in which SDs were written. So because SDs, even though you have written it yourself, sometimes you might just forget that one word which you used to describe yourself.
Quality.
And you need it. Exactly. So that's the one thing. That way of writing it makes it easy to recollect and write during the actual test. So that's a good strategy, I feel.
Okay, fine. So you prepared the SDT beforehand. This is the only thing which
Yes.
for which you touched the pen for
Yeah,
psych.
for I had no, the other ones also. It is I didn't. It was not because I just had little time, very little time, and I'm not someone who I was quite lazy during that time to take time. So whichever really works for you should be done. I actually felt really really anxious because I had not written a TAT by myself. So that anxiety would have not been there if I had practiced. So
Okay, okay.
so I
So this was your first conference, and this is the first time you were writing full TAT in one
yes
go.
yes.
Okay, wonderful. Like just brainstorming and good to go. Very good, very good. So this is all about psych. Okay, so you were feeling confident after your psych? What was going on in your mind just after your psych?
It was a blend actually. That I was okay. That I was not very happy with a lot of words. I felt the sentences lacked depth. It really was very something on the surface, which is not advised by people. So I was not happy with my VAT. SRT, I was happy with the number I had attempted, but here and there I was not happy that I gave a conclusive
Hmm,
reaction.
hmm,
So
hmm.
that was a little anxious. There was one interesting SRT. I don't know for Coast Guard or Navy. So you're in you're in love with a girl who's in a of a different caste or something, and of a different caste or religion or something. So the answer I wrote very spontaneously was, I'll convince my parents and go ahead with the religion.
Marry her.
What is interesting is, no, it is not written that my parents are against it, right?
Like
So I
automatically
just
it comes to your
yeah
mind that
yeah
my
I
parents
just
are against.
assumed yeah. So I just assumed that they're against it. So
Hmm,
that actually indicates, the sort of situation. I think that was not necessary only. I could have just written, yes, I'll
hmm,
just go ahead with it.
hmm.
That is enough. But
Unnecessarily
later I
you
thought,
introduce that your parents will definitely be against this intercaste
against
marriage
it.
and all.
Exactly.
Uh,
That's a very interesting one. So sometimes you just assume. So I think you can write straightforward. I just go
yeah,
ahead with it with the
yeah.
blessings of my friends and relatives.
Okay, fine. So this is all about psych. Let's move towards the personal interview. Okay, so
Yes.
like when this personal interview happened, just after your psych or like how?
Personal interview was, I think, first day after the psych.
Okay,
Yeah, first day after psych. And honestly, before my SSB, even while preparing, I was very very optimistic only about interview. So it's
okay.
because I had a very decent narrative about my career. I didn't plan to hide anything as such,
Hmm.
and my academics are decent, average enough to justify. And I was planning to do best in interview basically, and my slot was one of the last slots of that day. And I went and waited in the waiting area, which was very cold. I don't know why they keep it that cold. It was very cold. I waited for around 40 minutes, and then I was called into the room. And it was one of the last slots. The interviewing officer throughout the interview looked at the clock. His smile was not very convincing. And I was, although I was mentally prepared for this, I knew these were things which I might
It's
have
they
to
are going to
encounter.
use
Yes,
to
but when it
distract
actually
you.
comes in front of you, you feel
Huh,
worried.
huh.
I
You
was
get anxious,
expecting
yeah, why he is doing this to me?
exactly. I was expecting the interviewing officer to put me under a stressful condition,
Hmm,
but when it actually happened, I was a little caught. I was caught off guard basically, and most of my interview went through PIQ based this only. My academics he was interested to know some ranks in some entrance exams from the past, so 12 standard ranks, and some of the ranks I didn't remember. I remember JE mains or something. I didn't remember the rank, but I told him that my rank looked like a pin code, and I don't remember it. And
yes.
he didn't really no. I told that because towards that time I was starting to lose grip of the interview, and I thought, okay, I might as well take some risk.
Okay,
So
let's bring him back to the track.
yeah, and one more thing was, I don't think he found it very funny because nothing, his face was reactionless. But that's something I did, and that's the answer I gave. Other than that, most of the questions were spinning around how much my finances. How do I manage my finances? What are my friends doing? PIQ things. It's very very. It's out there now. How
Hmm.
PIQ based interviews are conducted.
Okay, so we discussed a lot of questions during our chat. है ना, जब हम लोग मिले
Yes.
थे एसएसबी से पहले मेनली हम लोगों ने
Yeah.
ज्यादातर इंटरव्यू के क्वेश्चंस ही डिस्कस करे थे. तो लाइक डिड ही आस्क यू अबाउट योर स्ट्रेंथ एंड वीकनेसेस इन योर इंटरव्यू?
Not directly. It was more in the line of what my father thinks is a strength in me, what my mother thinks is a weakness in me,
Yeah.
what I would like to see improved in my sister, that sort of thing. I think it was a very
Okay.
straightforward strength and weakness question, but it was mixed in this different angle. So it could probably be correlated later with my SDT answers also.
SGT, yeah.
That's a
So like
possibility. And
what your parents think about you, they will match. Like is there any
yes,
similarity in that or not? Like psych mein you are
yes,
doing something else and you are saying
yeah,
something else in an interview.
yes.
Okay,
That's a
so
possibility
like can
totally.
you
Yeah.
just give few examples like how you proceed with the answer, like questions like what your father wants you to improve and all.
what my father, like I said, if you're self-aware and fairly truthful, there's nothing to hide, and your answers are spontaneous. So in my case, my father often used to tell me I need to structure my communication and use lesser words. Be more. Even the viewers might have noticed that by now. I might be using more words than needed in many instances. So that's the only. Hello. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a feedback my father gave. That's the feedback. That's the answer I gave to the interviewing officer as well. My mother, say a strength. My mother observed. I think she would consider me as a career-oriented individual, and that's probably a thing she likes about me. That's the answer I gave. Very standard answers. Nothing out of the ordinary. But it has to be sort of substantiated in your SDT, and there should be conviction in your voice. I am pretty sure they're trained to detect a lie.
Okay. So conviction is also required when you are talking about why do you want to join the forces. So tell me what happened in that question.
I don't remember being asked that question actually. My answer, I think, yeah, wait, I think something in that lines was asked, and my answer was very standard. I saw it as any other job. For me, I was not particularly defense, but
It is
I
not
planned to
something
do my best.
special, something like that.
No, not like that. I never really said that. But my approach was: this is an exam. This is the interview. I'm planning to take it very seriously. Whichever job I get, I'll do my best. So that was the attitude I had. When I was asked, I think I was asked why Navy. I told this particular function, this logistics branch, and logistics very closely is a branch is very closely related to industrial and production engineering. So supply chain logistics, etc., is a function, is a sub-function of industrial and production engineering in some curriculums. And I was able to defend that way. This particular logistics branch, I'll be able to, and the Navy is a very, very huge enterprise. And because of that, I'll be able to learn logistics, supply chain from the very best while serving the nation and while having very access to a lot of exclusive experiences. So that's the answer I gave. I didn't really give because that's not true, right? If I say defense, because it's not planned. If I say being in defense, being serving the defense forces is something which I always wanted to do, and he asked me why didn't you write NDA, why didn't you give SSBs earlier? Then I have no answer. It is very clearly a contradiction there. So this is the answer I gave. When I was suddenly at the brink of a career break, I gave all the options. I take everything seriously, every opportunity seriously, and I've taken this seriously, which is why I'm sitting before you. That is the sort of approach I had.
Okay, fine. So, like, did he ask you any technical questions regarding your branch and all?
Technical questions regarding my branch. He asked me what I expect from a logistics officer, and there is a very brief description in the naval website, which is what I gave also. Planning, forecasting, use those two keywords. That's what I expect. Is the role of a logistics officer. And other than that, nothing particularly from my field. I think Coast Guard actually they took a lot in that direction. I was not able to answer quite a few of them. And he asked me the name of chiefs of staff, and I actually did not remember a couple. I only remember naval chief from Navy interview, and I was able to answer that, and I couldn't answer this. And then I think he asked about if I had read that day's newspaper, and then he asked me what was one major news I saw. So I think it was around the time Keir Starmer had won the UK elections. But that was I didn't remember that then. I think the answer I gave was there was some very tragic stampede incident somewhere in Uttar Pradesh, and I mentioned the location, but he wanted to know the district where that happened, right? So I was not able to answer that, and so my advice would be if you're ever citing a news article, try to learn that in more depth. If you wish to give a better answer, you have to learn it in more depth. So that might be a good strategy.
Okay. ठीक है. Anything related to Indian Navy in depth?
In Indian Navy in depth, nothing I recall of. Nothing very significant. Nothing in depth actually.
Okay, so any tricky question in your interview which you can recall?
Tricky question in my interview. Like I said, JEE rank was a little tricky because I didn't remember it, and it was not a very memory-worthy rank. And other than that, towards the end, nothing very standing out. But towards the end, his the demeanor that the interviewing officer has will catch you a little off guard. You're anxious. You feel, is he not really interested to listen to what I have to say?
You're not able to understand what is going on in his head.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, but towards the after the interview was done, I was very I lost all hope on that particular SSB. Actually,
okay.
I was not very confident. And my interview was not very long also. It was only 35 minutes or something, 35-40 minutes. And there were other candidates whose interview was going for an hour also. So I felt, okay, maybe I didn't give my best this time. So when I walked out of the interviewing hall, the building, I actually was not very optimistic after that. But one thing I remember was one of the first days, I think during mustering, one of the officers actually told, give your best for that day and forget about that. So after psychology test, don't think about psychology anymore. It's of no use. And after interview, I took his word. I took his advice. I stopped thinking about interview. I focused on what was coming next.
Okay. So what is coming next is GTO. Let's
GTO,
start
yes,
discussion over GTO. Okay. So GTO
yes,
is of 2 days, है ना? Long procedure,
yes,
9
yes,
tasks, है ना? So let's
yes,
discuss about these tasks in detail. First of all, let's talk about the GD part. Okay. So
yes,
this also comes under basic series test. So what was your
yes.
approach? How you prepared for the GD? Like how you perform? Like you were able to contribute? You were able to
Mhm.
like add value to the GD? How you approach that GD?
Yes. So GD, I actually noted that sometimes the topic is not very GK intensive. Some topics are very ambiguous. Say work from home. Is it a boon or a pain? That's a very ambiguous topic. You don't really need to have a lot of knowledge to answer it. If you're generally aware, then you can start giving opinion. A lot of people are working, so that really went in our favor. And sometimes in the GD, in which we have to select between two topics, usually the group also selects the topic where lesser knowledge is required. So mostly you're safe. And I'm not someone with a lot of red knowledge. I'm not someone who was up to date with
Current affairs and up to
current
date.
news.
Huh.
Yeah, it's truly. In fact, I wrote that as one of my weaknesses also. So I still need to work on it. It's something that I have to work on. And there in GD, I was always worried that if something comes which needs a lot of bookish knowledge, I won't be able to do well. But GD actually was spinning around a lot of general topics. And and like I mentioned earlier, because we were people with lesser attempts, maybe that is one of the reasons. I'm not sure. So most of us were respectful. We were letting the other person speak. We were giving some, although in the middle it had actually got into that chaotic stage. But we let everyone speak. Whoever wanted to speak got a chance, is what I believe. And sometimes I don't know if it was a good strategy. One distinct thing I did during GD was something which I think was not good. I don't know, but I used to ask a question sometimes. Say for example during GD, during GD for this work from home topic, the group started taking a direction where we were telling that workload reduces in GD. Sorry, workload reduces in work from home situations. So if you're working from home, it means your workload reduces. So I thought that was wrong. I have heard friends who say workload has increased because of work from home. So I just used to wait for everyone to become silent and just put this question out there: does work from home actually reduce work stress and workload? And I used to just stress on those words. And then there'll be some, because I know the background of the other individual. He's actually working from home, so he will actually be able to give me a different perspective. That will give him a chance also to voice his opinion. So that's something I did. I used to occasionally take a pause whenever the group went silent. I used to put a question instead of actually stating a suggestion. That actually worked in my favor. Some might disagree, but that's something I did. And generally, the idea should be to take the group. A selfish motive actually will backfire. Say if your intention is to show off your knowledge or to just be the loudest one, that is not something that really works
Trying
in
to
your favor.
dominate, है ना? Overshadowing
Yes, that's
others.
not. Yeah, especially the others are also quite respectful. I can understand if when your group gets more and more louder, you are also forced to become assertive. But sometimes it's not necessary. So you have to sort of understand the nature of your fellow candidates, and then sort of tailor make a strategy instantly.
They are ultimately looking for the group effectiveness. If you are
Yes, yes,
cooperative with each other, you are
yes,
supporting each other, listening to others, and like adding value to the GD or not, है ना?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
fine. So this
exactly.
was all about GD. Okay, and let's move ahead with the another basic series test, that is group planning exercise. How was it?
Yeah. My group planning exercise was probably, I was not at all happy with it. Actually, even previous day when we were in the room, I was planning, oh, this is how I'll write a problem statement. I actually even considered you. I wrote a WhatsApp, my answer format,
Yeah,
forwarded
I
to you.
sent you one format to write the GPA.
I sent a thumbs up, and then when the exam came, I fumbled because I never took pen and practiced. It backfired.
Yeah.
It backfired there. And the thing is, in GPE, unlike other written tests, there's a lot of parameters to keep in mind. You have to do a little bit of calculation also to ensure that this plan works out. You'll reach on time, right? So I was good at, okay, these are the things, resources we have. This is the problem statement. These are the problems. This is the priority. But when it actually came to writing, I used to fumble and I had to practice, but I never did. So that actually backfired. I couldn't really complete the strategy. I never wrote it on paper successfully. And my strategy was different from what most people had chosen. Um, but one thing that now, after completing the process, one thing I can understand is, in case you were not able to complete your military planning exercise on paper, don't worry. Focus on the discussion. Don't really give up because you could not put your plan on paper. You can focus on the discussion and still make it sometimes.
Okay. So like, how's your participation? Like, you were leading the group. Like, you got nominated for the common group planner or what?
No, in military planning exercise, I had taken the back foot. I was not. My plan was a little different from what the group was taking. So I was mostly spending my time listening to what they have to tell and pointing out any possible problems that they may face in their plans. I was sort of taking that. In the meantime, I was also trying to sort of mix my idea whenever possible, but that was not really working out. Their idea was a little, very significantly different. So I understood that this might not really, this might not be really be my thing. But I tried to contribute whenever there was a calculation error. I tried to point that out. And towards the end, someone else was nominated to narrate the common plan, and he did a very good job. So we all agreed.
He also got recommended.
Yes, he too got recommended.
Okay,
He
fine.
was the one who even narrated the PPDT story as well. We were one chess
In the same
number,
group.
one. We were the consecutive chess numbers. Yes.
Okay, so you both got recommended from the same group.
Same group, yes.
Like in PPDT also you got recommended for stage 2 and from stage 2 to medicals. Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now let's move ahead with the PGT and HGT. So
Yes.
like we discussed mainly PGT and HGT. You went through those 3D videos we discussed during the workshop?
Yeah, very much. That is the most useful resource I came across during this. It's pre-recorded, it's available on YouTube, and I was very foreign to the even I used some books to prepare. I believe SSB crack.in. I used the books from their publication, and it is quite good. I used it for the questions. I'm quite satisfied with that. But when it came to PGT, HGT, it is very difficult to put that on paper, right? What kind of obstacle? I know the resource. You have a stick, you have a plank, you have a rope, but how does it really play out there? There are very few videos out there. So that effort you have put to build a 3D system is truly commendable. Really fabulous job, and it's available out there for public access. It's truly fabulous. I think what you're doing is a true service to all SSB aspirants. And I actually watched those pre-recorded videos, even the complex ones. I was from simple to complex. I watched all of them, and I took a couple of screenshots so that it's sometimes I watched. You watch it very.
You remember the structures, how like this
Exactly,
bridge is
yeah.
made, like where is the support, where is the rear end support, and all.
No, more than the answer, I was thinking of, okay, this is the obstacle that you'll come across.
Okay.
So because the obstacle, if it is kept in your mind for long enough, a solution will also eventually just come out. So, but I definitely looked at the answers because I didn't have so much time. So I actually looked at the answers. This is okay because that support, I never really thought of it in my wildest dreams. That is the solution. In fact, I remember in my PGT, one of the first obstacles was very simple. But we were not able to find solution because we were all freshers. We were all standing there clueless, trying to do something almost impossible. Then the group task officer had to intervene and actually guide us in the right direction. So using those videos, those 3D picture, seeing that, having a couple of screenshots to refer occasionally was a very, very good thing. And PGT was again tricky because there are other candidates who are quite physically present. They might actually take the rope and stick and stand in front. It's very difficult to coordinate in such a situation. So I tried my best in PGT. We tried to guide the group. I tried my best, but I felt I could do better in HGT, and I could do very well in command task. So when the command task came, there's an indicator. You get tasks more and more complex based on your performance till that time. So command task, I got a fairly complex command task, and I was able to luckily find a solution within the span. I was able to do that well. I feel like better than my group tasks, the command task went well.
Okay, so like you told me that like you wanted to participate more in PGT and HGT. So like
Yes.
you were not able to get the hands on the helping materials. You were not able to implement the like ideas physically yourself, or you were just giving
Yes.
ideas and like staying
No, no,
behind
no.
the starting line and all.
No, I got access to the helping materials because the tip from you in your video only was as soon as they say start, grab onto something, right? So that's what I also did. I grabbed onto something whenever I could. I gave ideas which were implemented, but I just felt that there's more that could be done. But yes, broadly
Idea-wise,
speaking,
like
yeah. Idea-wise, I felt there more could have been done. But PGT, there are a lot of people standing there randomly suggesting. It's very difficult to stand out. Sometimes some people are able to do it effortlessly. That's also great. But I personally found it little difficult to stand out during PGT. My advice also, I mean, my performance I felt was not a standing out performance PGT, but HGT because lesser members are there. If you have more idea, you're able to stand out better.
Okay, so like in command task, he was creating pressure on you, like he was destroying some like structures. You were making color
Yes,
changes and all.
yes. So the one of the candidates had called me as a subordinate for one of the command tasks previously. So I was actually familiar with one complex task. So the idea of arresting the motion of something that is swinging or moving by tying it to the side cylinder was something that was registered in my head.
Stopping the movable part and all.
Exactly. So that was registered in my head. So when my obstacle came, I planned to use the same strategy. But naturally, I used a rope for it. So he immediately gave me an obstacle, and he told me rope is no longer in the equation. You can no longer use the rope. So moving structure was such that its motion could be arrested with a stick also. You can just wedge a stick into it, and it would still arrest the motion. So that's the approach I went. It worked in my field.
Okay. Okay. So this was all about like command task. Like, did he ask anything like mini interview type during your command task and all?
Yes, very briefly he asked me about why I wanted to join the Navy, for which I gave answer which I had given previously. It's an opportunity, logistics, and then that line. And why Navy? He chose. Why he asked me why Navy, not Air Force or Army. And the reason was, I said, I think I am not really happy with that answer. I said it has a 3-level supremacy, right? Over the air, on the over the water, on the water, and under the water supremacy. So I actually gave that answer, and then I told there was an opening, there was a vacancy, which is why I applied to Navy.
Simple, straightforward.
It's a fact. So that's the answer I gave. Then yeah, that's very brief interview. Maybe
why do you want to join Navy? Because you like opened the vacancies for it. That's
what I can say.
Okay, okay, fine. So this was all about command task. Now what about group obstacle race or snake race?
Yes, group obstacle race. Actually, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. Some people think of it as just a formality, but I think group obstacle race may, I never looked around, but I feel the officers were all around us and they were not standing idle. They were all having eyes on everyone. So group obstacle race, I actually was not in my best shape, unlike now, but I was not in my best shape. During group obstacle race, and but I still gave my best. We developed a very one more advice to the groups would be to develop a very small work cry. Don't have something very long, which is difficult to say again and again. So ours was very brief. It was Vande Mataram, and we were able to say that faster. And towards the end, you are expected to shout your work cry at the highest voice, truly to intimidate your
opponents or competitors,
to establish your assertiveness. So if you have a very long work cry, that might work against you. So have a very brief, very small work cry. Vande Mataram was the work cry we went with, and I went all in GOR. I was able to cross some of the obstacles. Wherever I needed help, I reached out to my teammates. Whenever I could let help, I helped my teammates. And my teammates were also very, very cooperative individuals. They never let anybody go behind. We were reaching out to everyone. That sort of true teamwork was truly witnessed. I was very happy with my team. Honestly, I think the whole process, I would probably not even go through if the team was different. Like, it was very challenging. My team was a very solid team in that particular SSB. And then we crossed the obstacle. And then in some cases, when we finished earlier than other teams, we were asked to repeat. We repeated. And I think the second wall was quite high for us. But we still managed to we finished early. But then you know how they equalize everything towards the end. And everybody finishes at the same time.
Okay. So like you told me, like your group was very cooperative, helping each other out because you were all freshers, never attended any conferences. So like how was your experience? Okay. Okay. So like we were discussing about the group obstacle race. So like I just wanted to know, like you told me in NSB, you were all freshers in a group and you were cooperative and supporting each other out and helping each other out. So like how was the experience in Coast Guard? Like now you became repeater and you will have some repeaters in your group. So how was the experience in Coast Guard?
Coast Guard, I think I was not in my best shape. I don't really blame the team, but I had fallen back. In Coast Guard group obstacle race, I was not very happy with my own performance. I had fallen back. I was not able to keep up with my team. So that basically indicates my own lack of preparation. So, and even earlier in Navy, I don't really think they were really nice teammates because it was freshers. Maybe they were just good individuals also. Some of them were recommended with me. I'm very happy with them. Some of them who could not unfortunately get recommended. They were also very nice, good individuals. So in Coast Guard, but I had let down after my Navy SSB. I was not really at my best during Coast Guard interview. So I feel that might be the reason. So
okay, fine. It was not about the group. It was about you.
yeah.
It's not you. It's me.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's discuss about the lecturette. Like how you prepared the lecturette. You only told me that you are not very good with the knowledge part and everything.
Yes.
So how you prepared like for the lecturette and what was the topic? How you delivered it? Something like that.
Yes. So from your workshops, I used to just briefly look at lecturette topics, and it was I think there were like 100 topics or something. There were a lot of topics. So I realized before, when I had time to prepare, I thought, okay, 1 day per topic. 2 days I'll do a couple of topics. Every day, if I do a couple of topics, I'll be able to complete all the topics towards the end of the towards the SSB. But that never really happened. I never was able to prepare for all those topics. So I ended up going to the SSB with very little knowledge to give a lecture. So I learned that every lecturette card will have 3 topics, and one will be a very knowledge intensive topic, and one will be a not very ambiguous open-ended topic. So my plan was, in case I know about that general knowledge intensive topic, I'll speak about it. But if that is not the case, I'll take the light-hearted topic. So the topics I got in my Navy SSB card was, if I am not wrong, it was Article 370. There was yoga, a gift from India to the world, and then there was Bollywood movies. Bollywood movies. So obviously, I stepped out and I had 15 seconds to. 15 seconds to decide. I read the topics. I realized, and I think e-commerce. Something about e-commerce also. I'm not sure if it's 4 topics or 3 topics. How many topics are you there?
4 topics are there. Yeah.
4 topics. So the other topic was something about e-commerce. So I thought about all these topics, and Article 370. I realized, although I know to a certain depth, I do not have access. I have not read enough articles to form an opinion, right? And the other one, yoga, also I can go on, but I don't think I'll be having enough fuel for 3 minutes. Then the last one left was Bollywood movies. So Bollywood movies, I'm not someone who watches Bollywood movies very frequently, but I had a very critical take on Bollywood movies at that time for some reason. It was in the angle that Bollywood movies are grossing a lot of money, but they're not really focusing on the craft. They're not really focusing on movie making. They're focusing on the money that they make. So I took that and I went all in. So and I didn't have, by the time I selected my topic, I had only like 4 seconds. So it was bell also rang. I had to go inside. So I just went there. And
You just decided the topic in 3 minutes, not prepared anything.
I know. I just selected the topic. I don't remember distinctively having any plan.
Time to prepare.
I just had like an opening line or something. That's all. I didn't really have much depth, but because it's an open topic, I planned to sort of spontaneously do it. So when the topic started, I put out a very critical take. I told them, they need to really up their game with the craft. They need to stop having a transactional relationship with their audience, and we should support smaller filmmakers who focus on storytelling as opposed to money making. So that is what I said. I spread it out to 3 minutes, and I was very assertive, loud. My hands moved around a lot. So I did that sort of approach. That worked in my favor. I feel I was very happy with my lecturette for some reason. But that's how I went with my lecturette. But I advise candidates, if you're able to do general, that's also a very good thing, right? If you're speaking about more knowledge intensive topic, that puts you in a very good situation. But don't really take up topics which you are not confident about, right? It's tricky to speak for 3 minutes.
So like you told me that you were just ready with your introductory statement. So like it was related to some idioms or phrases or something like that, or like it was a normal statement?
No. Like I said, I'm not really so much familiar with Bollywood movies that I could actually come up with a phrase. I just went with the topic I've chosen as Bollywood movies, and it's something which we are all familiar with. And it is, in fact, the identity of the country in many ways. A lot of people associate the country, the nation, with its film industry, and Bollywood is our film industry, and then went in that direction.
Yeah, movies represent our society.
Yeah, to a great extent.
Okay. So this was all about lecturate. Then comes the individual obstacles. So how many individual obstacles you completed?
I was able to do 7.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 obstacles, and I was actually very anxious about individual obstacles. I think I told that to you also, because I was not someone who has attended. I didn't know how challenging it was going to be. I was anxious about injury, etc., etc. But when the time came, I think I was having that sort of adrenaline thing going on. So
it pushes you to do more.
It pushes us, exactly. And Kolkata actually has quite very good infrastructure. So after say for example, the Tarzan swing, I could not do a proper landing. I actually fell, but then I only focused on getting up and running to the next obstacle. And even I think that summarizes my individual obstacle. I fell, but I just chose to stand up and run to the next one. That's what my individual obstacle was like. I think that's a strategy which is decent. But if you're fit enough, great, you can do more.
Okay, fine. So this is all about individual obstacles. So you were like physically active, running and all?
Very little. I think a little more would have been nice. I used to run. I used to do that, but I think little more would have been enough. Yes.
Okay. So like finally, the final group task. How was it?
Final group task was very brief actually, and I got over before it started. It felt like. So I took all the, I had access to something. I was just standing on one of the platforms where standing was allowed, and I was looking. And before then, the problem was solved. Everybody's brains were warmed up by then because of all these tasks, and they were only able to solve the problem just like that. Even the GTO was okay. That's it. I've seen everything I want to see, and then concluded it. I was not really, yeah. It was very quick.
Okay, fine. So this is all about GTO, and finally, conference day, judgment day.
Yes.
So like, how was your conference experience?
My conference, actually, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to get screened in was to experience conference. So
Okay.
yeah, my goal was, since I've come to Kolkata so far from home, might as well experience a conference. So I'll have a story to tell when I'm back home, right? It's a very unique experience. So that was, I was very happy that I've
You
used
got screened
conference.
in.
And
That
yeah,
is
I was
more
no
than
no I had a
sufficient.
plan for every day. I had a plan for every day after screening, getting screened in. But one of the major goals to getting screened, I mean, what I really wanted to experience conference once. So when the conference came, I was it was mixed emotion. Like I said, after every test, you want to sleep peacefully. That's all. That night, that I've given my best. This is the best I could do. So I was a little worried about interview. I was a little worried about my psych. Some questions, after you give psych, you'll feel a little good. But towards the fourth day, you feel, "Arey, kya hi likha tha main?" Like I have written something in one. So
Flashbacks आने
that
लगते
one had,
हैं.
yeah, exactly, very very scary flashbacks. So towards the end, that was actually happening, and I had a very open mind. So I thought, okay, I think I've given 80%. I've done
Decent.
reasonably well for a first. Yeah, I felt all right for my preparation. Let's see if it goes in my favor. Great. If it doesn't go, I was open to going back to home and going for another attempt. So that's the attitude I had. And when I walked into the conference room, I was seated. Then he asked me about my experience there very briefly, and then he asked me about that. Like I said earlier, who was one interesting person I found there. Then he very briefly asked me about this transition in my career that I'd taken, why I was sort of had taken this, and had given an answer in interview. It had to match. I think you cannot give different answers
Different
later.
answers, yeah.
Everyone are literally sitting there in front of you. So that's the answer. Conference was very brief, very quick, nothing very distinct. Then he asked me how I prepared. So I told I consulted a senior, and I used some books. So that's the senior being you, of course.
You took my name or just like senior only?
No, I just said I consulted a senior who has experience
Gave
with
SSBs multiple times.
SSBs. Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Like he did like into depth of preparation or just on the surface?
Surface only. I mean, I think there only does no surface. But I think saying you didn't prepare is not a very good idea, because it's a fact. A lot of people now, there are a lot of resources out there. It's public knowledge to many. So I told that I consulted a senior. That's the
Okay.
in
Fine.
depth. I
So
think he asked about the books which I referred. I told the publication which I used, and then I told that also very briefly only I used. That's the sort of approach I had.
okay. So this was all about your SSB. So like
Yes.
when they announced your name, like what
Yeah.
was going on before that and after that? Just tell me like what emotions and feelings you were going through.
Yes. It's definitely a day. It's a very memorable day to most of us. So I was waiting, and the wait was quite long. And then eventually the officer walked in and read out the chest numbers. It was my chest number was first, because it was one of the early chest numbers. And I walked up there, and I was actually not feeling any emotion as such. I was
Emotions.
quite, because like I told you, I was very anxious about the process that was waiting for me, right? Medical and uske baad merit. So I was not really
Excited.
ready to. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
not very excited, because I was pretty sure iske baad bhi there are several
You called
hurdles.
me that day and you told me like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure about medicals that is going to happen. So let's see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was not really in that celebratory mode, but I was very grateful. I was grateful for the team that I got. There's a certain level of luck that is involved in every SSB. So I was grateful that I reached that far, but I was just bracing myself for the next step.
Finally, everything is completed. Now medically
Yeah,
fit.
seems like it.
Merit and GL is here in the hands.
Yeah.
Okay, and ready to join the academy. Okay.
Yes.
Really happy for you, Jayakrishnan, and
Thank
congratulations
you.
once again. And thank you for sharing your insights regarding your first attempt and in which you made
Thank
it.
you.
Okay.
No, thank you very
So
much.
anything else you want to like say to our audience and friends, those who are
I
watching?
think I've answered. Yes, I've answered most of it. Whatever I remembered, I've answered. If there's anything, I'm pretty sure you were having a person to consult is truly a blessing. I had you. I really needed someone, because this process, although there's a lot of material, how to use it. Like I said, there is a custom question for everyone. Everybody's life is different, so everybody's narrative will be different. So in order to fine tune that narrative, you need to consult someone who's been through this path, or who's having extensive knowledge about the subject. So it's nice to consult a senior or something like that. So I'm glad I could consult you.
Okay. Thank you, Jayakrishnan, once again, like, for coming onto this platform and sharing your insights regarding the SSB. I hope people find this video helpful. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you will learn from this video and achieve your dreams as well. Thank you all for watching this video. मिलते हैं आपसे next video में. जय हिंद, वंदे मातरम.